considering social relevance and lots of other things that we've studied this semester with Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore by Keener.
Okay, we're looking at the role that identity plays in this article. So can you briefly discuss in your group what do you think identity means?
So we'll give you a few minutes to discuss identity and identity.
Oh, okay, yeah, we'll do that. It's kind of what that language means to you personally and the things you like other experience and the language together to make you decide.
For example, can you have, this is just maybe have a topic, but can you have an identity with a language that is not your first language? For example, can I feel identified with the English language even though
Okay, let's come back together.
So what do you think identity means?
Okay.
What do you think identity means?
I think it means, well, who you are, but it starts with your family. That's who you identify with, and then it changes over time.
Okay, thank you. Who else has any other contributions?
We also said that the concept of identity is linked to all those groups that you participate in. Like, as John said, it starts with your family. That's your first community of practice, but then you start being part of other different groups when you go to school, when you go to college, when you have different friends, when you move out of your country, and so all that shapes your identity as well.
Yes, exactly. So you see, identity, it's more like how a person understands his or herself, and his or her relationship to the world, and then how this relationship, is structured, and then how he or she also understands the possibility for change. So you see, identity really plays a huge role in foreign language learning, just as we read in the article, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. So since we already know what identity means, we can now talk about what identity reconstruction means.
What are your thoughts on identity reconstruction? Reconstruction. Yeah. What are your thoughts on identity reconstruction?
I think, like I said, your identity is being shaped constantly, and you have to construct it as you go. And depending on where you are at a certain time, you have to reconstruct your identity. You'll still be you, and you're going to have your essence, but all the things that compose your identity will change.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, like we've talked before, language and culture are always connected. So especially when you're learning another language, you're going to have a different identity by the time you're done, because you're also learning about different culture and different ways of thinking and doing things.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate also too, like the formation of a family, what John was saying, having an identity constructed by yourself, but a reconstruction would be continually choosing to change and adapt your your identity according to the world around you, according to your cultural context and that kind of thing. So we know that Alice specifically goes to France because of her desire to imagine herself anew in a context where social options are broadened. So her even social status options, that kind of thing, are broadened. So as we examine the article, allow the overarching theme of identity reconstruction to kind of keep its flow throughout the presentation and discussion.
Okay, so looking at Alice's life, for example, since we've talked about identity, we realize the role that lived experiences play, your personal story, the role it plays in learning the language. And also when you think about standardization, especially if you've read Maravadevulu and you read about standardization, especially when you think of English and they talk about having different types of Englishes, and then they're trying to find out which English is actually the best, which is the perfect, which actually is the standard for other types of Englishes, and some people find it quite difficult to decide whether one particular English is the very best, because since when English is introduced into a community, they kind of modify it, through their phonology, putting in their phonology and the morphological adaptations, that makes it their own very language. Now, thinking of standardization and the idealized every learner, how does that connect? What do you think is the idealized every learner? Who is the idealized every learner? Can you people discuss that in your group? Who is the idealized every learner?
So, kind of like this personality, and is willing to try on new identities.
Yeah, definitely. Alice is a student that is going to France.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I guess. So I mean, I guess you're gonna respond to that question after, right? But should they idolize every learner? Should be the student that's motivated to learn and
I mean, an idea of a learner. When you're talking about idealized every learner, it's an idea, a profile of who a learner is. Just like you're talking about, standardization of languages, and you think of, one particular language being the best and the perfect, the role model for other languages. Just imagine that the standardized every learner is just one particular person. What attributes does this person have?
So maybe you're
So according to the article, who is the idealized learner? It's a profile of the perfect learner of a foreign language. What does it say about this idealized every learner?
I think we always think that our students, when we think of our students, we think that they're all super happy to be there, to come to class every day, because you have that enthusiasm for what you do in your profession, so you think your students are really happy to be there and they're always doing their homework. So when we talk about the concept of motivation, so I think that every time we think of the ideal student, we think of a student that's like really motivated to learn. It may not always be the case. We know for a fact that it's not the case.
Yes. So that's just it. The profile you have of a learner. And you go into your class and you see your students and you think, okay, this is the perfect example of a learner, and you expect all students to have the same personal story. According to the article, we have idealize every learner being a white middle class male. A white middle class male. Just imagine that's the profile on which assessments are based, on which products, uniform products are based on. And so, that's the problem with idealized every learner. So the concept itself is faulty. So why do you think it's faulty? Apart from the fact that, having this one profile is faulty, what makes this concept counterproductive? What makes it counterproductive?
Well, it can block students that you think. So you think of your students initially that they could be the ideal every learner, but the standardization can block some of them from becoming that because they lose motivation because they don't connect with it.
Yes. I mean, just looking at the role that even your religion plays, whether you believe or not, or the role that there are so many things where you could look at that would make your students different from one another. Even if they are in the same class, you teach the same topic, I mean, they all hear what you're going to be saying, but because of the different personal stories they have, they probably will be getting different things from whatever is being taught in the language class. And then looking at standardization, how it was critiqued by from the feminist point of view. How do you think it's critiqued by the feminist point of view? According to Poland, it talks about the critique of standardization. From a feminist point of view, remember we said that the idealized learner is a white middle-class male. So how would you critique this, from a feminist point of view? You could quickly discuss that in your book also.
actually the visiting here. We talked about
Locations that you know, since I'm teaching, like, well, I don't know locations, and I was like, where are you going with this for the your
So,
future tense?
what are your views?
We're on page 220 if you're looking for
What are your views on the critics from the feminist point of view? What are women or females prone to? What could be the struggles a female learner could could have to deal with that a male learner wouldn't have to deal with?
Well, it depends, sometimes on where it is and the time frame, but, a lot of the, sorry, getting my thoughts organized. It has to do with, we talk about pregnancy, children, where women are assumed those roles, where a male teacher may see a female as they should just be a housewife. Why are they here?
Yeah.
Hopefully less common than it used to be, but that was the case really not that long ago.
And I think the article mentions how some female students that were in Spain and like in Germany and different countries were actually facing discrimination
Yes.
or were not being taken seriously because they were women.
Yes. Very, very well said. Okay, now we go to agency and access in second language learning. And looking at what a second language learner is. A second language learner is viewed as someone learning a language in the community in which it is spoken, while a foreign language learner is someone learning a language outside the community in which it is spoken. And then there's an assumption made concerning the foreign language learners. What do you think the assumption could be?
It's that it's only for like an academic achievement. It's not for survival. For a second language is how to survive in that community.
Exactly. Who else? Someone else going to contribute?
They are believed to have very limited opportunities to practice the language outside
Yes.
the classroom. But I think that's true. I don't know if the author is trying to make a different point. Because I believe when you're learning a language as a foreign language, you don't have as many opportunities as when you are in the actual context. So
I think that's really open for interpretation, because if you look at what actually determines access to a language, and by access we don't just mean the opportunity to come to a language class, by access it means something deeper. So what could be, access to a language? Imagine being in a foreign country where you could learn the language, but you actually do not interact with the people in the community. So basically, you could actually be learning the language in the country where it's spoken, but still not really learn it as well as someone who could also be learning it in an environment where the language is not spoken. So that could be, it shows that it's probably not just learning the language in the community where it's spoken that gives you the opportunity. What else could motivate you, to actually learn the language and be able to really learn it well? What could motivate you?
I think you really have to like the language that you're learning.
Yes.
In the case of Alice, when she felt like her classes were not taking her where she wanted to be, she just, changed her approaches and she started going to different social circles and she started doing what she had to do in order to get to where she wanted to be. And she did so because she was motivated.
Yes.
So she really wanted to learn French, and so that's what she did. Other people, like, there's this I think his name is Alberto, and he's been very well studied in case studies and all that because he's, I think, Mexican, and he has lived in the United States for like 20-something years, and he doesn't speak the language because he's not interested. He's just not interested to opening, to the American or the English experience. So he's always listening to music in Spanish and always just getting together with Mexican people, and that's why he's never going to learn, even though he is in the context where language is spoken.
So you see the role that intention plays, in learning a foreign language or a second language.
Yeah.
So we have this view of the individual standardized learner that is not going to adapt to everyone. It's sort of a biased viewpoint, obviously, and we want to construct our view toward learners with a general viewpoint. So I'm just gonna do an